Hello, everyone. I'm Darla Shaw, and I'm a volunteer from the Ridgefield Historical Society. And today we are doing an interview with an amazing group of 4 men. They're from the Ridgefield Men's Club. This club has been in existence for 40 years, and it has up to 200 members. This is probably one of the largest clubs in town ever, and they have such an amazing background in history. Starting with Bill. Bill, will you introduce yourself? Tell us how long you have been in the club and positions that you've had while you've been in the club.
Well, I joined the club 7 years after it started. I've been in the club for 33 years, and it's changed a lot since I joined, but it's been a big part of my life.
Okay, we're going to move on to Jack. Jack, tell us your background.
I'm Jack Malloy. I was an engineer at PerkinElmer, joined the club in 1999. I had been on the waiting list for 5 years. I think I have the longest record for being on the waiting list. By 2002, I was president, and I've been involved in a lot of activities since then.
Okay, we're moving on to Greg.
Yeah, I'm Greg LoBasso. I'm the current president of the Ridgefield Men's Club. I think I'm president number 40. I started with the club in 2012, and I've held the director's positions. I was first vice president. I was in charge of the ladies' luncheon, and this year the club honored me and allowed me to be president for 1 year. So.
And our final speaker today is Ted.
I'm Ted McCormick. I joined in 1999 and soon became a director, then program chairman, ladies' lunch chairman, and president. So I've been in the group for 25 years. I also run 2 activities, the wine tasting group and the gourmet lunch group. And most of the things in town that we do are not replicated elsewhere.
Well, what a prestigious group of men to tell the story. And of course, the first most important question is, why? What is the purpose of this club, the mission?
Our primary purpose, our mission is fellowship. It allows predominantly retired men avenues to match up with other men in town who share similar interests, whether it be golf, gourmet lunches, hiking, we have kayaking. On their own, I think the men would be challenged to find a group of individuals that would share that. But our club really allows to make those network connections, and it really helps support individuals. It gives them new friends, it gives them new activities, and it really enhances their lives, especially in their retirement years. And we have various activities based on the more strenuous. You can go like kayaking if you want, you can go hiking, but if you want to just sit back and enjoy a beer or have conversation, we have that. So we have different type of activities to match what the members want. So but bottom line for us is fellowship.
Okay.
It also helps the wives.
Yeah, exactly.
Because most members worked, many of them in the city.
Right.
They just came home to sleep, and all of a sudden they were retired.
Right.
And you get a lot of energy, and the wives are glad to get them out of the house
Right.
and get something,
Yeah.
for us to do.
Yeah.
Very good reason for this club to begin.
Yeah.
How did it begin and who began it?
Club began back in July of 1984.
Right.
Bill would probably be a better expert on talking about that.
Well, it started in 1984, and at that time it was a much different club. Many of the men were from corporations, IBM, uh, all the different corporations that are around, and they were retired, but they didn't have many activities. They had a discussion group, which would not be handy today, and current events. And they had a fishing group. They had a tennis group because one member had a tennis court. And they had basically, and then from there on, it kept expanding and to more activities.
Interestingly, we were started by a woman, Louise Kolb, who was the activities chairman of the YMCA. And she had a good friend who was president of the Greenwich Men's Club. Recognizing we had no men's club here, she arranged through that organization to have a meeting of anyone who was interested in a men's club. And at that time, there were a half a dozen that decided they thought it would be a good idea. And she actually had to go to the first 5 meetings because none of the men even knew how to make coffee. Since then, we have developed into a multitude of activities, in excess of 25 different things that you can participate in. And we have an opening that anyone who wants to start another activity, they can do so, and they are immediately in charge.
Right.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have very creative activities, that's for sure. Now, I've heard your meetings are very structured, and you need to be to keep a club going for 40 years.
Yeah.
How are the meetings structured?
We meet twice a month. We meet at the First Congregational Church at Lund Hall. We meet on the first and the third Wednesday of the month. And basically, we'll start the meeting, of course, with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll work through club information that's important for members to know what's happening in the club. And then what we'll do is we have various club-sponsored activities. We have a ladies' luncheon, we have speaker program, we have a fellowship readout talking about who's sick or who's been hurt, and we reach out to those individuals. We also have a membership component where an individual will come up and tell us who's basically who has joined the club, who has become a member, who has become a member in waiting. So we have a bunch of reports about that. And one of the things that we started too is that we introduce new members and we introduce new waitlist members to the club up front. And introducing new waitlist members is a change for us. We didn't do that. We waited for individuals to actually become a member. And sometimes it could take up to 2 years to become a member. It used to be longer. But now it's basically it really has enhanced fellowship because these individuals are introduced to the club right when they join now. And they are actually attending our meetings. We made a change in the bylaws to allow them to do that. And they get to learn who the activity leaders are. They get to learn about all the club-sponsored activities. So it's really enhanced their ability of fellowship within the club. And then we'll introduce who our speakers are. We have a component of the meeting where we have the way we were, where a member or even a waitlist member can get up and tell us a story of their past that the group may find very interesting. And that has been a very, very big success for us. And it really fosters fellowship too, because it allows people to connect with things that they've done in the past with other people. And then the last thing that we do, we have a readout of the various activities that we do, talking about what transpired and what is going to happen in the future. You know, when is the beer group going to be meeting? What hike just took place? Where did you go? Where did the bike group go? Or where they're going to be next month. So it really helps make connections with people too. And if they want to join a group, they can identify who the activity leader is, they can go right to that group during our coffee break, which follows the actual meeting. And then we have a half-hour coffee break, and then we go right into our speaker program. And the speakers talk from about 11 to 12 o'clock. We have a question and answer session normally after that. But it's been very, very successful, and our members really appreciate all the effort that we put into making this a very friendly and the very much focusing on fellowship. So.
Okay, we've heard some of the changes. Bill talked about changes. You talked about changes. There's a trustee change, and were there any other changes? Tell us about the trustee change.
Well, that's just to make sure that the new guys coming along do not make any serious changes that would hurt the ongoing work that we have worked 40 years to maintain.
Right.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
An example of that would be when we made a change last year to allow waitlist members to attend the way we defined our meetings now. So we have a business meeting and a general meeting. So we allowed the waitlist members to come to the general meeting. In our bylaws, waitlist members could not attend the meetings. So if they arrived prior to, 10:30 when the meeting would break up, technically they weren't supposed to come into the room, which really undermines fellowship. So I think everybody in the club recognized that, and it was in our bylaws. And what we had to do is we had to go to the executive committee, present the executive committee what we wanted to do, changing the bylaws. We had to get the support from the executive committee and the trustees. And then once we obtained that, we had to present it to the general meeting for a vote to actually change the bylaws. And it worked out very well. And it's a process where, everybody is fully engaged, and anybody can question it at any particular point in time. But in this case here, everybody agreed that it was unanimous that this is what we wanted to do. And as a result of that, that big change, we've seen, like I mentioned before, a threefold increase in the number of waitlist members that attend our meetings. So currently, we have about 35 waitlist members in the club, and that can vary, it can go up and down. But we're getting at least 15 to 18 of those individuals showing up, where previously to this change, we only had 3 to 5 members. So it made a really big change. And a lot of members have come up to me and have said, they're very happy with this change and how much it has really improved fellowship in the club. So that's an example.
Well, thank you. And speaking of memberships, I want to make a correction. There's 150 members, and I included some of the wait list. And you said it's up to 35.
Yeah.
But I heard there was also an honorary member.
Yes.
Jack, could you tell us about the honorary member?
Yes, people who are not able to attend regular meetings are eligible for honorary membership, in which case they no longer have to pay dues, they no longer have to meet our 8 meeting requirements, and but otherwise they can participate in all the club activities
Right.
that they're able to. So we treat them almost as members.
Yeah.
And that evolved, I think, from the fact that if they were able to attend meetings, they weren't taking up a place.
Right.
When we were restricted to 100 members,
Right.
they were giving up their place so a new person could come in.
Yeah. And the other thing too with the honorary members, sometimes honorary members move away and they lose contact with the club because they can't attend our meetings. So we also make sure that all honorary members receive our newsletter. So they are fully engaged with the club and they can see what's happening. And we've also allowed, we've made a change this year too, to make sure that the minutes of our meetings, so we capture what's happening in the club, the reports coming out from the club-sponsored activities, and the regular member activities are published and posted to our website. So now members and waitlist members and honorary members can access those minutes and see and keep in touch with the group. So it's a way of also improving communication and fellowship, especially for individuals as they moved away or couldn't attend a meeting for some reason.
As a result of a request by a widow, I had instituted that they can, if they wish to give us an email address, they can get the newsletter too.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have other benefits for the widows too, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
We give them 2 lunches each year, all paid for by us.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's very, very, very nice thing to do.
When
yes.
when I came into the club, there was no widows. It's not they hadn't been around long enough. I counted up the number of widows we have now on the list, and there's 49 widows.
Right.
That does not speak very well for us men, but that's what it is, and
Yeah.
so they appreciate it,
Yeah.
being invited and included.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the stories I had heard is one of the reasons they put that program into place, aside from being a very good idea to do, of course, is that we have had excess money in the club. And what are we going to do with this excess money? So a person said, well, why don't we invite the widows to have a luncheon for them? So it was a way of allowing us to spend some excess money for our club.
Well, I'm glad you include
Yeah.
women. Do you include women as speakers? And tell us about the speakers. Jack, would you tell us about some of your favorite speakers?
Oh, we've had, like I said, 2 speakers a month for the last 40 years. There have been a lot of speakers. But I remember Todd Brewster, an author, gave a couple of very interesting speeches. In the past, we've had people like the ambassador from Ireland speak to us. Rudy Marconi comes once a year and gives us an update on town finances. We've had just so many. It's hard to pick out a few.
Yeah.
A couple of favorites of mine, speakers that I got. Hugh Mulligan was a worldwide commentator. He had a syndicated column called Mulligan's Stew, and he was the official news person who traveled with Bob Hope on all USO tours and covering the Pope wherever he went. And so we had some very good stories from him.
Okay, anyone else want to talk about speakers, where they come from, ones you liked, what the public likes in general to hear, and so on?
Some of the speakers we obtained came from other clubs. We are in contact with other men's clubs in Lower Connecticut, and we share information as to speakers, and we have picked up a number of speakers from those groups, and that's worked out very, very well. We've had some individuals that came to talk us about elder law, right, whether it be Medicare or estate planning, and those have been very helpful to individuals. And we get information about the history of Ridgefield, the Battle of Danbury during the Revolutionary War. There's been so many different speakers and so many different variation of topics that it's really interesting, and the membership really enjoys that. And like Ted said, it's a very nice job because you get to meet a lot of people, and it's with the people outside of the club and inside of the club, because a lot of club members will actually come to you and say, you know, I know this individual, they'd like to speak. The hardest part, I guess, the speaker program is if the individual cancels on you. Then you got to make sure you have a backup, right? But other than that, it's a very rewarding program, and everybody who has run that program really thinks it's special.
I think it's important to say, and we do not pay our speakers.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do not ask, we don't really allow them to advertise, but we don't, particularly political
Right.
Yeah.
points. But if they've written a book or something, they're certainly welcome to sell the book if anybody wants to buy it.
Yeah,
But it's a variety of speakers that just unbelievable,
yeah,
over the years.
yeah.
Two
I'd
of
just
my,
like to say, as a speaker myself, I remember getting a free lunch where I
Yeah.
got to sit
Right.
and talk more to
Right.
people about my topics,
Yeah.
and I got a great big certificate.
yes,
So, I mean, there's a lot of pluses to becoming a speaker
Yeah.
for this
We
group.
still do the lunches, not the certificate. I think you went to John Best probably, right? we
Okay,
still do that.
anything else about speakers, or we'll move on? Anyone else have anything?
well, I had two favorite ones.
Okay,
One was Mort Dean, who won, I think it was 5 or 6 Emmys, reporting from Bosnia during the war. And then I said that, give me a background of you. And he ended with, his favorite thing was, he was an honorary clown in the Barnum Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus. So when I had him speak to us, I introduced him to everyone, because I knew the audience, as Emmett Kelly. And everybody loved it, and he said it was the best introduction he ever had. And he gave me a very distinguished speaker, was a friend of his who is a Medal of Honor winner, Paul Buca, who at the time had not spoken in Ridgefield, and so it was his coming out in town.
oh, you've had some very impressive speakers here. Now, you do so much, but you can't do everything. So what are some of the things that you don't do in this club?
We don't do fundraising, and we don't do public service. We don't do service projects, right? Our club is really focused around fellowship, and a lot of members do get involved in fundraising that belong to many other organizations within town. But this here is really about fellowship and sharing experiences and having a good time. That's basically the bottom line for us.
And the members must certainly get fellowship and have a good time to maintain the numbers that you have.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to say anything about what you don't do, or is there a problem that you have to face with this club? There's got to be some sort of a problem. Jack, why don't you address that?
Well, actually, I can't think of any real
No.
problems we deal with.
I agree with Jack, no problems.
Yeah.
The-
No problems,
The waiting
okay.
list shows that the club is attractive to other people to get into.
If
Right.
we ever lose our lease
Yeah.
with the church, a congregational church, we're
Okay.
in bad trouble
Right.
because there's no place in town
Right.
that we will fit in or that will take us.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and that's one of the reasons that we're 150, not 500 or 400, such as Greenwich and some of the other big clubs.
Right.
So,
Right, and I think, like you said, you don't deal with politics, and you're not dealing with heavy finances.
Right.
And you stay away so that you can have this fellowship.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
comes
Right.
back to that all the time.
Yeah.
Right,
Our
so
fruit-
we're gonna conclude, and we're gonna start with Ted. And just anything that you didn't have a chance to say, anything that we didn't cover, any final comments about this club?
I can tell you that any of the members who move away that I'm friendly with, that contact me, the one thing they miss most about leaving Ridgefield is not being in the men's club. To me, it's the same thing as sliced bread. You can't do without it.
Wow, great quote, okay. And Greg?
I think the men's club really plays a very important role in the men's lives. It allows structure, like I mentioned before, connecting with the different activities, and I don't think there's anything like it. We're a very close group. The fellowship is fantastic. when we have our spring picnics, I have a committee, because I coordinate the spring picnics and the Oktoberfest, but we have a small committee. But we also get a lot of volunteers. So we'll get about 20 volunteers from the club, everybody pitching in to help make that a very good event. It's not just, you go and have a good time. Everybody helps, everybody participates, and I think that's one of the most important things I see for this club, is how everybody basically clicks together and everybody wants to be part of this club and interact with everybody else. And I think that really brings a lot of satisfaction and structure and joy to a lot of the men in town, and I think that's why we're so popular.
Okay, you certainly are popular. Okay, Jack.
I think the biggest impact that men's club has had on me is it changed my relation to the town. When I was working, I was always busy and I associated with people from work. I didn't know many people in town. But when I retired and joined the men's club, I got to know a whole host of people. It just made all the difference in the world. Ridgefield became more than a place to sleep, it was a place to live. And that, I've heard that story from several of the other members, but that was the biggest impact on me.
Okay.
I think the thing that comes to mind is that how the people in the club have changed. And when I came in, they were all working for big corporations. Name a big corporation in the area they were working. We had a lot of pilots. We had World War II veterans, but now when the people get up and explain what they do, they've had all sorts of jobs because that's what the economy is.
Right.
And also, some of our best speakers are in the club. Everybody has a story, and it's just fascinating. Or somebody dies, and you think, "Oh my God, I didn't realize they did all that."
Right.
Because and so it's just a wonderful group of men with a lot of talent meeting together
Right.
for fellowship, and that's the men's club for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to add a personal note. At my age and physical infirmities, I need a lot of help getting to and from places. And I can tell you, I can call 30 or 40 guys at a moment's notice that would be there to take me any place I wanted to go.
Oh, that's great. And I love what you said, Bill. Everybody has a story, because that's what we were doing here. We were telling stories. And finally, for someone who's watching this and might want to become a member of this club, how would they start or go about doing this?
To speak to any member and find out that the person that they're talking to could sponsor them, and there's a simple form to fill out, and then they can join, obviously, to begin with, the waiting list.
Okay.
And by the way, the
Yes.
waiting list, you can do anything in the club, and you don't have to pay dues.
Right.
Don't tell them that.
Oh, no, they know that.
Okay, Jack.
They mentioned it, but every member has to have a sponsor.
Right.
And usually the sponsor will solicit the member. It's a good friend, he knows to be a good guy for the club.
Right. Okay.
Come join us.
Right.
But there are some people who find about the club and don't know anybody in the club.
Yeah.
And they all have to do is contact us through our website or contact a member. And we'll find a sponsor for you.
Yeah.
Good.
But you do have to have a sponsor, and he's
Right.
responsible for you.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you, foreman. You did an amazing job. I'd also like to thank Jesse Lee for giving us the facility, and I'd like to thank Stephen, who is doing the video for this. I have learned a lot, and I think people who are watching this video will learn an awful lot about the background of a club that has been in existence with 150 members for 40 years
Yeah.
and really doesn't have a problem. Okay,
Well,
thank
Darla,
you all.
Give me 1 second. I'd just like to thank you because I think this project is really important for us. So we really appreciate, when you approached this board, I said, wow, this is a great idea. And we're very, very appreciative of actually being able to do this and to have this visibility in the community and have this documented about what we do. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you.